Okay, so if you watched the other video, you'd know that we're going to be naming compounds. And when we name compounds, we have to name the ions. How do we know what charge an ion will have? This is the main question. We have to know certain things about the periodic table in order to properly name these compounds. So here's a crash course on the periodic table, sort of like what we did in class the other day. First of all, you'll notice if you look at the periodic table that there's a point right here, or there's like a staircase right here. Big and thick and dark. It goes all the way down and it cuts the periodic table into two portions. All the atoms to the left of that staircase, except for hydrogen. Hydrogen's different, special. We'll find out why later. Okay? But all of these atoms here that are to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left of that staircase, these are called the metals. And if you look, you know, you've got copper and nickel, you've got gold, gold is here, silver. These are metals that we know, that we've heard of before. So it makes sense, right? All of these are metals. Over here, on the right-hand side of that staircase, we have what we call the nonmetals. All of these are nonmetals, including helium and actually including hydrogen. Okay, so all of those are nonmetals. Now, the ones in the middle, the ones that I sort of skipped right here, boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, all of these guys that are touching the staircase, except for aluminum. Aluminum is actually a metal, right? Of course, we know that. But all of these guys that are touching the staircase like that, those are semi-metals or metalloids. We'll talk about that when I get back from my break. But basically, the ones that are in green are metals, and the ones that are in blue are nonmetals. Oh, and I forgot to mention the F block. These are all metals too. But we won't be working with them too much because they're different. Now, metals lose electrons. If you lose a negative charge, you become positive, right? It's sort of, remember when we were doing this and we were counting the protons, the neutrons, and the electrons? If you lose an electron, you become positive. So metals are always positive. Nonmetals gain electrons. And if you're gaining a negative charge, more and more and more negative, that means that you are negative. Now, there's a couple of tricks that you need to know in order to find out what charge an ion will have. That's key to being able to name some of these things. Group 1 is always, always, always going to be a 1 plus charge. That's because these metals here want to lose one electron. If potassium with 19 electrons lost one electron, it would be just like argon. Argon is a noble gas. Atoms really, really, really like to have the same number of electrons as a noble gas. Okay, so if you could lose one electron and become like a noble gas, you're going to do it. And then you'll have a +1 charge. Now, if you look at calcium, which has 20 electrons, it has to lose 2 electrons to be like argon. So guess what? It's going to have a 2 plus charge. Group 1 +1. Group 2 +2. On the other side of the table, we can predict what charge these will be because if you count how many it takes to get towards the noble gas, that's how many electrons it has to gain. So for example, fluorine has 9 electrons. Fluorine, if it wanted to be like a noble gas, it could just gain 1 electron and it would have a 1 minus charge. Group 17 has a 1 minus charge. Group 16, well, oxygen would have to gain 2 electrons to become like a noble gas. So it would have a 2 minus charge. Likewise, 3 minus, etc. So if you look, group 1 and 2, they match up. That's 1 plus and 2 plus. And then starting over here, we have nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. These groups here, group 15, group 16, group 17, they're going to be minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, because the noble gases are all going to be 0. They don't need to gain or lose electrons in order to be like themselves. Once we can tell what charge an ion will have, then we can start the naming process.